are basically we're talking about the principles. It is not a question of A lawyer or B lawyer. We are only talking about fundamental principles that when Indian Constitution was drafted, the citizens of this country were given some basic fundamental rights. Of course, they are not absolute rights, but they are qualified rights. There are limitations, reasonable restrictions on those rights. But one of the uh, fundamental rights, which we talk about, freedom of speech and expression, which is considered to be the lifeline of all other fundamental rights in the Constitution of India, is therefore of special importance. Because if you recollect Justice Beg in Bennett and Coal Mines case, in his concurring judgment, stated that freedom of speech and expression is the ark of the covenants democracy because public criticism is essential to the working of its institutions. Therefore, when we talk about freedom of expression and freedom of speech, we talk about a person's right to initiate a discussion, advocate a point of view for the purposes of examining the working of various institutions and contribute to the better development of those institutions. And of course, this right, which is given by the Constitution of India, is subject to the reasonable restrictions. And one of the reasonable restrictions in Article 19.2 is contempt of court. Now, we must know that a person, when he exercises his right for development of the institution, must be at the same time cognizant of the fact that he does not say anything or do anything which will ultimately scandalize or prejudice or interfere with the administration of justice. Now, this is a very important issue, but this issue has also been examined by Supreme Court in many judgments. How, I would say, the question that we must ask ourselves is how free should speech be? And the second question that we should also ask ourselves is how should free speech be? Now, mere criticism, if it is bona fide, well intended, may not be in a proper phraseology. Can't it be treated as a contempt of court? I think I need to take you to some observations of Lord Dennings. Now, Lord Dennings, in one of his speeches, has said, while talking about justice, he said, justice is not cloistered virtue. And at other place, he says, about the contempt jurisdiction, they would never use the contempt jurisdiction to uphold their own dignity. For that must rest on surer foundation. We do not fear criticism, nor do we resent it, for there is something far more important at stake. It is no less than freedom of speech itself. So therefore, the importance of freedom of speech, because freedom of speech can lead to betterment of the institutions. And we must know that judiciary in India is given a lot of respect by all people because of its commendable job. But if sometimes people who are associated with it, watching it closely, seeing its functioning, feel at some point of time there are needs, that there need to be some improvement in the functioning of the system, I think those criticisms must be taken with broad shoulders. And that is what Supreme Court has also said in one of its decision called DC Saxena versus Honorable the Chief Justice of India of 1996 judgment. I would like to quote some observations of the Supreme Court here. A citizen is entitled to bring to the notice of the public at large the infirmities from which any institution, including judiciary, suffers from. Indeed, the right to offer healthy and constructive criticism, which is fair in spirit, must be left unimpaired in the interest of the institution itself. Critics are instruments of reform. Now, this is very important. Critics are the instruments of reform, but not those actuated with malice, but those who are inspired by public good. Bona fide criticism of any system or institution, including the judiciary, is aimed at inducing the administration of the justice or institution to look inward and improve its public image. Courts, the instrumentalities of the state, are subject to the constitution and the laws and are also not above criticism. Healthy and constructive criticisms are tools to augment its forensic tools for improving its functioning. Now, how have we to deal with this matter? Then the court says further, a harmonious blend and balanced existence of free speech and fearless justice counsel that law ought to be astute to criticism. Now, this is what the Supreme Court has itself said. Mere criticism is not contempt of court. But then, if a person is alleged to have committed a contempt of court, there is a proper procedure which has been laid down. You must also appreciate that we have to understand about the contempt of court of the Supreme Court of India, which is the highest court, and from where there is no appeal. And therefore, the court has to be extra cautious while dealing with the subject matter of contempt court of the Supreme Court itself. Now, therefore, there is a proper procedure that has been laid down. And we have the Contempt of Courts Act 1971, which has also, under which we have also the rules which have been laid down by Supreme Court itself. And those are the rules to regulate the proceedings for contempt of court of the Supreme Court in 1975. We have section 15 of that legislation, which says 3 modes, and this is very important, how the court can take cognizance of the criminal contempt. 1, the court can take it suo motu. Second, it is on the complaint of the Attorney General or Solicitor General, or on the complaint of any other person with the consent of the Attorney General in writing. Now, here was a case where a complaint was filed by a lawyer in the registry, but it did not have the written consent. It did not have the written consent of the Attorney General. Therefore, it could not have been taken cognizance of. Exactly. It could not have been taken cognizance of without the consent of the Attorney General of India or Solicitor General of India. Now, a very important thing, why the consent of the Attorney General or Solicitor General of India? Now, it was not existing in the original 1951, the 1952 Act, but it was introduced on the basis of the report of the Sanyal Committee, because Sanyal Committee wanted Attorney General to be the custodian, guardian of the contempt jurisdiction. Now, very important, that is what we must understand. Complaint has been filed by a private person, does not contain prior consent of the Attorney General, convert into the suo motu contempt. This is what has happened in this case. Now, this is one of the infirmities that we must definitely be cognizant of, knowing very well that this is a contempt of the order, contempt of certain tweets that have been made by Prashant Bhushan, and therefore could it be treated as a suo motu contempt and placed before the court without the consent of the Attorney General. Now, this is the first thing that I would like this debate to take place in this context, because there is no appeal over the order of the Supreme Court here. Now, the second infirmity that we must understand, now the second infirmity that I see is when you issue notice and the gentleman files his reply, and the reply that he has filed is almost in more than 140 pages or 134 pages. Along with that, there are the annexures which run into more than 400 pages. Now, when you are dealing with this matter on merits, the judgment in para 2 only refers to this affidavit filed by the alleged contemner, but does not at all discuss this at any stage. Because why it is important that it should have been discussed is because under the Act, if you go to section 13 says, truth is a defense. And therefore, you deal with the whole matter. Up to 90 pages, you deal with all the judgments that the Supreme Court has laid down. But you do not deal at any stage with respect to the reply that this man has made. And I am not sure from the judgment of this court at any time whether there was any address on merits by the Attorney General. Though the notice was issued to the Attorney General and the Attorney General was present in proceedings, but was he invited to make his submissions on the merits? Now, this is, in my opinion, I do not find anywhere this aspect being discussed. So therefore, in my submission, one, infirmity not have converted into a suo motu contempt proceedings, because what has happened in this case, copy of the complaint has also not been made available to the alleged contemner. My position is, justice not only be done, justice must appear to be done. We may differ on what we find the merits of the matter. What may appear to you as a contempt may not appear to the other person as a contempt. That is not the matter. Question is matter of principle, whether we followed due process in this case, whether we followed the principles of natural justice in this case, whether we followed the due process that was necessary to be followed, knowing very well that this is a case where this is the last resort and there is no appeal from this. Now, what will follow? What has followed from this case is that you have not considered whether truth is a defense, because you have not gone through the affidavits. You have not considered his defense. And if this is not happened, it may be a very bad precedent for the future cases. And that is where we have to guard ourselves and our institutions, the democratic norms, and the fair play and the fair justice. This should not happen, and this should not have happened in this case. I am not on the question as to whether the court is a proper convention or appreciation of what these tweets were all about or they were not all about. I am talking about the principles. I'm talking about the scope of the freedom of speech, whether this is going to, in a way, make an inroad on what was otherwise till date the courts having broader shoulders and treating them such criticism as a criticism in the true sense of the term for improving the system as such. So therefore, these are my basic observations, which I just wanted to start the discussion, but I will come back to it after we have impressions of Professor Mohan Gopal on the subject.